Oh, well, folks, welcome to another episode of Jim and Rob Over-Analyze Movies, a live video podcast for people looking for a deeper conversation about the movies we watch today. Um, yeah, this flick, not gonna lie to you, I was really nervous about watching it. I avoided it, but in the end, it's definitely gonna be on an Oscars hopefuls list. So I thought maybe it's time we dug in. So yeah, let's get into it. That's right, everyone. Tonight we're going to be looking at Anora. Great log line from IMDb. A young escort from Brooklyn, the titular Anora, or Annie, meets and impulsively marries the son of a Russian oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as his parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. And yeah, that's a great summary of this flick. But before we get into that, want to revisit last week's flick, but really what we need to do is invite my co-host with the most, my borscht bro, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How you doing, my
Happy
friend?
New Year. Happy New Year, folks. Great.
There you go. There's there's the applause you get. That's what you get, Jim. Yes, oh my goodness. I have totally dropped the ball on that.
Oh, no.
Well, I was doing some technical adjustments, Jim, and I may need to address that. There might be a later edit.
Sure.
But first, before we get into that, Jim, yes, Happy New Year to you. Are you cool with, me taking a look at Nosferatu one more time? I
Yeah,
want to get your
absolutely.
feedback on this.
You never have too much Nosferatu.
So we didn't do the social nutrition checklist last week, so I put it up on Threads and left of the Projector podcast. He chimed in when I said I didn't think it had a working class perspective. He chimed in and he thought Hutter was a working class guy. One of the protagonists, played by Nicholas Hoult, he was kind of, a working class guy wanting to move up in station in life. And first of all, I was like, I didn't read him that way. He came across to me, Jim, more as how can I put this? A middle class guy, I'm thinking a Jane Austen character, one of the what would have been called the pseudo gentry, somebody on the edge, middle class, petty bourgeois on the edge, like threatened with poverty, threatened with being cast out of his class. But he doesn't present like he came off the factory floor. He married a woman who is definitely not working class, and he's got a rich sponsor friend, perhaps a nouveau riche friend, but somebody he grew up with. He's educated. He's a young man with some connections. Not a great deal, but almost like the captain in Jane Austen's Persuasion. It's like he maybe had no connections to get married to, what the heck is that? Ms. Elliot. But he definitely had enough connections to get a commission in the Royal Navy. So that's the way I read Hutter. But it got me thinking, Jim, why this movie's so successful. And correct me if I'm wrong, Eggers, this is absolutely his biggest box office. You could say it's a box office hit. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's trending upwards. It hasn't quite hit 100 million yet, but it's done pretty well. It's doubled, I believe. Last time I watched Dan Murrell, I think they mentioned it, he had doubled any profits, any box office that he made from his biggest hit so far.
Yeah.
So,
Like,
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it actually does as much box office as all his previous 3 films combined.
yeah.
But the thing is, it got me thinking, Jim, it's a good film. Nosferatu's a good film, but and I said this before in our live stream, and I'll put a link here. I still kind of feel, and I feel the same way now. Here is a guy who was much like Gus Van Sant did with Psycho, his Psycho remake. I think it's really like, I want to give this movie I love a glow up. You know, a lot of the themes are kind of still there, but I don't think he brought much new other than production values. So what you have is a film that is a glow up of a film that's famous for a number of things, but it wasn't like people are going, oh, I can't wait to rewatch Nosferatu again. But so why is it so successful? Why are people so into it? And I think it speaks to an anxiety of our time. This idea, as I'd argue, our capitalism is in crisis, as it is wont to do every now and then. People are watching it, and you were in the theater with me. There is a lot of young people, not teenagers, but younger people, younger than we are. And I think the film speaks to, in part, that economic anxiety.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was a diverse crowd too. It wasn't just, there's a lot of South Asian kids and that kind of thing too. So.
Yeah, no, great point. And even more so than it's speaking to something that they're all feeling. And it's that economic anxiety. What's going to happen to me? Something that's been, a lot of think pieces, but I think this film just really kind of caught people at the right time, and so I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, there's a few things going on. I think the hunger for horror has. I might have mentioned this on the last.
You keep
broadcast.
talking while I fix my
Sure.
our 2-shot here.
Maybe it's a mirror and you're really a vampire and it's just not showing up. No, there's a real hunger for horror out there. A lot of the young folks I know, they go when there's a new horror movie, they go pretty quick to the theater. And yeah, it has hit on something. It's funny in terms of the 2 movies we're talking about tonight, a little bit now about Nosferatu and a little bit about Anora. There's this joke on threads that keeps on coming up, and it's Dad, why did you name my sister Anora? And she said, and Dad says, your mom really liked the movie Anora, so that's what we named her. And then the kid goes, oh, thanks, Dad. He goes, no problem, Nosferatu. so it's how, and I'm borrowing that. I apologize. I don't know who from, but it's if it's on thread somewhere. But I think that kind of speaks to a couple of films that people are talking about lately. But in terms of Nosferatu itself, yeah, there is a real, I think horror has sort of, I don't know if it's making more money, but it seems to have turned some sort of corner. And it's not just the Fangoria crowd that's, going out to these things, but it's more of a general interest thing. That, and, in terms of, again, when Peter Jackson redid King Kong, he added some scenes that evidently, from my recollection, he added some scenes that had been taken out, like things that he wanted to see. I think there was a fight with T-Rexes or something to that effect. Likewise with this one.
I'm back. Okay, continue. Keep going.
Eggers was and I think we did touch upon this a little bit. He was able to bring sound into it, which was, Nosferatu, for all intents and purposes, did not have a voice, an actual physical voice before. Well, maybe the Werner Herzog version, but from that that silent version didn't have a voice, and I thought the sound design and everything that the sound added, the voices, the different accents, I thought that all brought a lot to the game there. So I think that there's a couple things that he does. Yeah, it's a glow up, but actually, I think the sound really improves it quite a bit.
Yeah, you know what though? I don't think just good production values are enough to justify the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's lots of great, well-made films out there. Like I'd go even further, Jim. Like the guy is a master of mood, absolutely. But you saw that in all his previous films. Why this one? Why is this one getting the big hit on what's still an art house film?
Christmas?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're absolutely right. It's an art house. It's a Christmas art house film. You bet.
Mm-hmm.
But here, look at that. Hey, look, I think I finally fixed I fixed it.
There you go.
I'm back.
But that's impressive. Mid broadcast.
Yeah, you know what though? I do. I think the big thing, like all great horror films, science fiction films, historical fiction films, these ones, they have to capture something of our time.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to go beyond that. Otherwise, well, it's good, but what was that? Oh, Terrifier 3, I think.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly successful film. Yeah. I don't think it's the production values. It's capturing something special in the audience's feeling. It speaks to an anxiety. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's get into the flick of the day. But before I do that, I think it is time to beg everyone for a like, a subscribe, and of course, please ring-a-ding that bell.
Do a more hardcore one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chaboyko. Whoops. Turn that off. We don't need it on twice. So let's get to Anora. Before we hit the spoiler zone, Jim, why don't you give us, is it a see it or a skip it for you?
For me, it's a see it. I don't know who I'd want it to see it. I wouldn't want to watch this with my kids. It would not be a family movie night movie. And I frankly don't know that many people that would probably enjoy it. But I think as part of one of the movies that's generating a lot of talk, it's worth seeing. I say go for the chaos and stay for the resolution.
Myself, it's a definite. It's a hard see it. I'll get into the social nutrition checklist in a second. But yeah, it is entertaining, but it is also trope subverting. If you're thinking, oh, is this okay? One of the reasons, Jim, I didn't want to watch this is because I heard sex worker and I heard Russian oligarch, and I'm like, I don't want to see. I don't want to see some woman brutalized on screen. I don't want to see some thug or a bunch of thugs do terrible things. I'm all full up on that. But like I said in the cold open, I'm like, well, a lot of people are talking about it. Check it out. And I'm so glad I did. I am just so happy I did. It is a trope subverter. It's still way more real than, say, a Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah.
It's a solid see it for me. Which kind of leads me to think it is now time to, whoopsie. Let's get into the spoiler zone, Jim.
Certainly.
Um, let's start let's start with just the film itself. Um, what yeah, dive in. Why wouldn't you recommend it to someone?
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't you? Like,
Yeah.
when you say, it's not a family film,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you?
Well, just
Why
that,
why isn't it a family film?
yeah. Just the sort of the sexual content of it. Not to sound like too much of a prude, but I tend to watch a lot of movies with my daughter. I don't think I'd want to watch this one necessarily.
Would
She's
you be a
free to
little
watch
uncomfortable,
on
Jim?
her.
Is that what
A
you're
little
saying?
bit, yeah, yeah. There's a great SNL skit where a family's sitting around watching the Terminator, and they go, "Whoo, I forgot how long the sex scene is between Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn," and it just goes on forever. And so yeah, no. But aside from that, I think that's probably most of it. Yeah, the people that I know, they have their various likes and dislikes. I don't think my wife would like this, for instance. So, I'd be judiciously recommending this to people.
Yeah.
I'd pick and choose. But so that's the only thing. Yeah, that I
Okay,
would say.
never mind who you'd recommend it, but
Hmm.
let's say so an adult that is sex positive, a sex positive adult, why would you recommend it to them? What makes this recommend worthy?
I think it makes some choices that are kind of interesting, that are not typical, and it's a little bit, it's one of those movies that you're a little bit of the way through it, maybe past Act One, and you're like, I have no idea where this is going or how it's going to resolve itself. I can't sort of imagine the ending, which is always good. Unpredictability is a good thing. So that's one of them. The other thing too is that there's the various things that happen. They don't follow a typical line, I would say. So
Yeah.
there's not anyone, like, there's a lot of rivalries. There's a lot of nastiness. There's not anyone, like, nobody gets knocked out with one punch. There's not a hidden weapon. There's not, like, none of the resolutions to any of the chaos. It just feels very organic. What you think it's kind of surprising, actually. What you think happens, if you read this on paper, happens.
Yep.
A girl hooks up with an oligarch. I wonder if it's
Son
going to
of an
go well.
oligarch.
Son of an oligarch. I don't think it'll go well. Well, surprise, it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And the parents get involved, and that kind of thing. So it follows a very predictable path, but it does it in a different way.
Yeah.
Another thing that I like too is that there's a 25-minute long set piece right in the middle where she's sort of fending off is even a weird term, but she's basically being held in place by two henchmen.
Yeah.
And even that's a heavy term. But at no point did I think that her life was in danger.
No.
Like, I didn't think it was going to go that way. And they were even a little bit concerned, maybe for appearances. If you remember, when O.J. Simpson finally, when he got thrown in jail, one of the charges was kidnapping, and that was because he moved one guy from one room to another room forcefully.
Yeah.
So I think these guys are fully aware. They're like, don't shout rape, and that kind of, like, they're just, please. And they try to work with her a little bit. Not that it's a friendly relationship, but I kind of like that, is that you didn't feel that her life was necessarily in danger.
I couldn't agree more. That's one of the many tropes that are subverted in this film. There is, Anora, Annie is a victim, but she's not a victim. She is a victim because she's poor. She's a poor sex worker, and the young man's father and all the friends he has and the access and the power that comes with incredible wealth is what victimizes her. But when she is fighting, she is fighting. You do not in any way, and you're like, yeah, there's there's a fighter. There is somebody who's not going to, she's not rolling over. She's also not, like you say, it's not one horrible thud and she's out and you're just like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? You're like, oh my God, she is just not giving up. And
Mhm.
like you say, the thugs, and they are thugs, but they're
Yeah.
not, you know, I think of like, whether it be a comic take like Guy Ritchie can have,
Mhm.
or, um, I do. I have
Fargo,
images of,
maybe?
well, no,
The guys in
Eastern
Fargo, perhaps?
Promises,
Oh, yes,
Sexy
okay.
Beast, where it's like the coiled up, just menace and danger and
Mm.
cruelty. Scorsese and, the Casino, where, it's just that, Joe Pesci's character is always that kind of how violent, how disturbingly violent is it about to get. Um,
Yeah.
I'm thinking the first Equalizer, which totally turned me off on that, was it's, oh, okay, so of course the sex worker has to die, you know?
Mhm.
Uh, and this isn't to say that sex workers aren't brutalized, aren't that, but that it isn't just going for that. It isn't going for, let's say, the middle class view of how these people live their lives. And
Mhm.
yeah, even the thugs are like, I'm just trying to make some money. You got to work with me or I'm going to get in trouble. Like how they're
Yeah.
forever, how the henchmen are forever. It's like, please, you got to help me. You got to tell her that it wasn't my fault,
Yeah.
because they're terrified, not of the oligarch, but of the oligarch's wife, the
Yeah.
mother of the spoiled brat.
Mhm.
Yeah, so many tropes undermined. I could not get enough of this. Couldn't get enough of it. And it's darkly funny,
Mhm.
but not super dark. It ends on a great note. I You do worry for Annie, but
Yeah.
at no time are you thinking, oh, you get that she's living a fantasy, the fairy tale, yeah, this is not gonna go anywhere. Even there's a first half of the second act.
Mhm.
In between that, there is a point, damn it, I wrote it down, Jim.
Okay.
I think I even put a time on it. Where are we here? There's a point where I write like, oh, the phone call. So of course they've gotten married. And then all of a sudden, they're trying to get a hold of Vanya, the family.
Mhm.
Rumors are abound that he got married to a hooker. And she's like, you gonna answer that? You gonna answer the phone? And that's where she's like, yeah, this great fantasy I've been enjoying, that phone is not calling with good news.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Vanya doesn't want to deal with it.
The insistent phone, yes.
The
It keeps on
insistent phone.
it's the lights that go off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
And
have
then
that
he's
feature.
just letting it go to voicemail. And
Yeah.
it's great because, of course, later on, when they're constantly trying to get a hold of him, it's going to voicemail. He's not
Yeah.
answering. He's not picking up, much like he wasn't before.
Yeah. General priority not to answer the phone at
Yeah.
all. But yeah, no matter who it's from, they borrow all his friends' phones and get him to call. And yeah, he's
Yeah.
not picking anything up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's avoiding it. And then he's, as Igor says, who is a delight,
oh yeah.
an absolute delight. Even when there's a moment where it's like, oh, now it's going to get ugly. It
Mm.
doesn't actually. Igor just takes the bat, smashes some stuff up, but doesn't brutalize
Yeah.
anyone. Like you're just, yeah, Igor is the one. Just I even feel a little bad for Igor. And
Yeah.
what's it,
Yeah.
Gropnik?
They called
Or
him
that's the slant.
yeah.
The
Garnick.
Garnick,
Is the
thank you.
guy who
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
who should have probably gone to the hospital because he was just vomiting about 5 hours
I
after
think
being
that's
kicked in the
because he
face.
ate
So I think
all of
that's
ate all of Igor's grandma's pills.
Oh, is that why? Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
because he
I was
said,
thinking.
"Only take one at a time. Don't take them all."
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
takes them all. So of course he throws up later.
Yeah, I was worried for his health there. I've had, in this movie, I thought,
And that's the
which
thing.
one's gonna
You're
die?
actually worried for his health. You
Yeah,
feel for them.
yeah, yeah.
At the same time, never going there's sometimes when a character like uh, the screaming angry sex worker
Mm,
is portrayed in a way that you're like, "Oh, I want her to shut up." It's like, nope, you totally get it. You get why she's behaving that way. You're
mm.
never irritated by it. At the same time, you're kind of like, I get why they're like, oh, I want her to shut up, but we got to be careful. But, it's like, damn it, Vanya.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is all Vanya's fault.
Yeah, this is one I'm
This
glad
is
I
all
didn't.
the spoiled kid's
Oh, yeah.
fault.
I'm glad I didn't check out the various, Wikipedia pages, because the fellow who played Igor has huge chops, and that would have been the first hint. It's sort of like when you're watching Law and Order, and somebody comes on as a tertiary character, happens to be like, oh, I don't know, Laurence Olivier, not really, but like somebody you recognize comes out as like the janitor. You think, okay, this is going to swerve this story, but um yeah, so in that case, like he's got some chops. He's worked with the National Theater of Russia, and he's
Oh,
got
yeah.
quite an extensive thing. But man, that character was fascinating. And there's a nice little detail, I don't know if you noticed, but on the last day, again, we're in the
Yeah.
spoiler zone, folks. So on the Toros,
Yep.
Vanya's godfather, says
Who
to
ditches
a
a
baptism.
baptism as a godfather.
Yes.
And of course he's dealing with his angry wife.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, but so Toro says to Annie, you get, go back home, relax. You got to be out in the morning. You can stay one more night in the mansion. And so her and Igor, they sort of just, they're vibing, they're sort of chatting. She's still a little bit nasty to him. And then she goes, "Oh, I'm going to bed." So she walks up the stairs, comes back down, and gives him a blanket, right?
Yeah.
In the morning, so she comes down in the morning, he's dressed in that sort of with those European puffy jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
The blanket is folded up beside him. He's folded up his blanket. And it's sort of these details that I thought, okay, that's pretty pro.
And I
That's
think it's a
that's
great
awesome.
moment because it also, again, it hooks back to, she's saying, "Oh, he's just a drug dealer, and how come he has these drugs?" He's like, "I'm not a drug dealer." And it's like, just as she learned Russian, he went to his grandma's house.
Yeah.
Which I think is the first moment where she looks at him, because she just kind of stares at him when they're all having burgers before they find where they finally figure out where Vanya is, and she's having a burger and she's looking at him, and that's the moment where maybe she's like, okay, maybe you're not a Gropnik. Jim, we've got somebody in the chat, fellow YouTuber, fellow film tuber, Epic-tastic Joshua.
Oh.
Epic-tastic Joshua's in the house.
Hey, Josh. How you doing? EP.
Joshua says, he's he saw it 3 times through VOD.
Wow.
It is. Praises Mikey's performance. She played Annie. Deserves all the claim it's been getting. Talking about Ivan Vanya was a pretty great character despite how much you hated him. Absolutely. Yeah, he's detestable, but well performed. Even the moments early on with the sex where it's like she's, trying not to laugh and, because he's, well, like any young man, it's like, hey, if I could just get through this faster, I'll win the race.
Yes, exactly. Get back to my video games. Unreal. Youth
But
youth is wasted on the young.
uh, Joshua also says the house invasion. Yeah, it is. It's a standout scene. It becomes comic while still being real.
Mhm.
Great scene, crazy, chaotic, and hilarious. Absolutely. Referring to Yuri Borisov, the guy who played Igor, uh, more loyal and respectful than Ivania, and saw that Honora was, well, I don't know if he saw her as a nice girl. I'm not sure about that. But what do you think? How do you read Annie, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to this is it's kind of a difficult one here because it's trying to be a little bit, well, it's trying to be positive about sex work, or neutral, not with the usual judgment.
Yeah.
It's And she does it very well, like that opening sequence in the club where she's just effortlessly charming, but it's all
Work in the
transactional,
crowd.
right? And even the first they keep on going back to this song, this I believe it's from Take That, but it's the greatest day of her life. It's sort of an aspirational
Yeah.
song, but almost every relationship in this movie is transactional,
Yeah.
except for Igor and Annie.
Yeah.
Really, it's a bit of an offshoot. He's obviously doing this as a hired henchman, but there's nothing really, but other than that, there's nothing but between them. Nothing he does he thinks he's going to get anything back for. Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
gets her a glass of water, or the way it's framed, he's always a little
The
bit off
scarf that
center.
he used to gag her.
Yes, yeah, yeah. But he's always a little bit off center, and you can
Yeah.
see. I almost wish they hadn't shown that, because it was a bit of how they showed him was a bit of a giveaway. Like,
A little bit
I
of a
thought,
tell, yeah.
but I mean, you sort of need that too. You need a little bit of predictability
Yeah.
to make you,
You
not
gotta be able
predictability,
to
but
buy
yeah,
it.
it's
You
a
gotta be
hint,
able to
right?
buy him, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and he's
Um
got all these little sideways glances and things like that too. But yeah,
Coming back to what Joshua said, and I want to get into that a bit further, but first I think that means it is time to talk about the social nutrition checklist. Let me see if I can pull that up. And it's even the right one, Jim.
woo,
um, Jim, this is the way I read the film. I am not sure it would get a reframe stamp, but it might. It is she is the star. She is not just the titular character. She is the driving force of this film.
mm,
Her choices, her reactions, she's the movie. Even when she's getting dragged around, you don't feel like she isn't. Anyway, that's now me editorializing about the film. But so it might get a reframe stamp because one of the producers is what the heck is the director's name again?
Sean Baker, no,
Baker, yeah, Sean Baker. His partner, his wife, Ms. Chan, I believe it's Sao Chan. Samantha,
yeah,
yeah. She is one of the producers of the film. They are producing partners, so there's an opportunity they could get a reframe stamp, but I'm kind of stretching it, so I put a question mark on that.
sure,
It is a union-made film.
hmm,
Definitely passes the Bechdel test.
yeah,
And I would say absolutely a working class perspective. And that comes to the meaning, the theme, like one of the main themes of this film, or maybe not a theme, but something they're definitely exploring. A choice Baker made, and the other filmmakers, of presenting this sex worker in a realistic light without judgment.
mm,
She's a worker. Even there's a moment where she's arguing with her boss saying, well, when I get a 401k and a health thing and this and
yeah,
that, she is uh, speaking to a working class reality.
Mhm.
Um, Igor, also a working class schmo, kind of, this is how I make my living.
Mhm.
The two ding dong friends of Ivan, uh, at
Oh,
the candy
Tom
shop, Tom
and Alex.
and yes,
Alex.
yeah, Tom
Yeah.
and Alex, those ding dongs, like they're even the way Annie lives with her sister. Yeah, it's a little house, but it's not this what I would call a lot of you know a bourgeois approach where
Yeah.
squalor
Yeah.
and drugs everywhere. Even I noticed early in the film when they're all doing coke, she is not. She did ask for a pill,
Mm.
but she smokes reefer, but she never took a bump
Wow.
of coke.
Yeah.
Never once. And it was
Well, I
like,
didn't notice that.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, she doesn't. And I think that's an interesting choice, but it doesn't, again, undermining these tropes, presenting her as, uh, yeah, somebody who has no problem telling, oh, just a sec here. Let me make sure. Telling you to off,
Yeah.
who knows how to handle herself,
Mhm.
which is why and coming back to uh, Joshua's discussion about she's a nice girl, and it's like I I wouldn't call her a nice girl, a good woman, absolutely, but yeah, this isn't some sweet nice girl who just needs the love of a good man. It's like
Mhm.
no, Annie's if Annie and Igor end up together, I suspect she'll still be working in the trade. You know, um,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
uh,
it's hard to say. I was
yeah,
wondering about that. I was
yeah.
thinking about that today. Yeah.
There's no idea of she never presents herself as being rescued. She has this
Mhm.
fantasy. The fairy tale ends. Yeah, I don't think that's where it's going. But let me ask you this, and
Sure.
Joshua, you chime in too. I'd love to hear your take. And oh, Jelly Duck 100's in the house. Just a
Hey,
sec
Jelly
here.
Duck. Hey, JD. Happy New Year.
Um, Jim, what do you? It's a perfect moment to go. What does this movie mean? What is Baker telling us here? Uh, you much like Eggers, this guy has he did Tangerine. What else does he got? Like, I mean, it's
Red Rocket, Florida
Florida
Project.
Project.
Yep.
It's very much experiences, usually just a day or two of working class and poor people's experience.
Mhm.
But what do you think this movie's about?
Yeah, I think part of it is about people's working class perspective struggling to get by and trying to retain something, on their own. They're all, I don't think any of them you could describe as being really successful, and except for maybe the oligarch parents there. But yeah, they're all just sort of struggling their way through the world. And in Nora's case, she's actually pretty confident. She presents as confident, whether that means something else for her future, I don't necessarily know. But yeah, I think it's just about the sort of the struggle there and the lives that they find themselves in. Nobody sort of grows up wanting to, I don't think, do the work that she does, but there she is, and she's she's going about it,
Making a living?
and she does it so
Making an
so
honest living,
yeah,
you
make it
know?
on and effortless to her. It's
Yeah.
it's a good montage at the start. A little bit icky, like I don't like those places myself, but in the
Well,
in the very
just like you said, how transactional it is, how, depressing
yes,
it
yes,
is, for all involved. Like,
yeah,
yeah, these, like anyone in a shit job,
yeah,
working a shit job, there's a dehumanizing aspect to it. But
yes, yeah,
here's one of those ones where it's like, wow, everyone's being dehumanized. These guys aren't having a good
yeah,
time. They're all very quiet.
yeah, yeah,
Whenever I've been in a strip club, Something hasn't happened in decades.
Yeah,
You know,
usually,
how quiet and just
yeah,
like, okay, the music's loud, but
stag parties and stuff like that. Yeah,
just
yeah.
quiet and they're just, yeah, guys staring,
The other thing
you
too
know?
that I think that this movie does is it's sort of on its surface, again, I'll use the word aspirational, including with the very first song. There's a sort of a dolly shot going down a line of girls lap dancing with the clients in the club, and it's that this is the greatest day of our lives, and it's such a positive song, and it's just like these are, this is such a just a just an odd,
What
not posing any morals on it, but the dude sitting there. I think one of them says, "What is does your family know what you do?" And she says, "Yeah." Does
they
your
do.
family know you're here? And he goes, "I hope not." So it's yeah, it's that sort of it's that uh, image versus reality kind of thing,
What
especially with sex work.
yeah.
Is that this is not an ideal situation. It's not your meet cute kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Well, even
And without
especially
being moral, I'm trying
yeah,
not to be, without imposing a moral
yeah.
filter on it.
I do think there is a bit of, let's say, there is a moral point being made here, I think, but it's not judging the people who find themselves in circumstances where they're making a living here.
Mm,
You know, and again, coming back to that idea, like anyone in a terrible job, they still have friends, they still have family, they still uh, have fun,
mhm.
you know?
They make their
They
way,
still,
they
yeah,
find a way.
yeah, they find a way to find some joy.
Mhm,
Um, but every song, at times I just had the subtitles on, like
mhm.
throughout the captions throughout. Like a lot of these songs, perhaps younger people, including who else do we have in the chat here? There's Dragon Movie Guy, that young man. Shashank, Shashank,
Oh, is he here?
he's here. You know what? Joshua, Shashank, um,
Oh, Draga DMG. Yeah, sorry,
DMG's here.
I was doing
But
some research on the side here.
those
So,
two may have, like, some of the pop songs aren't really our era. So,
yeah,
certainly not the Cars. Split Ends. You too. Um, but I think the way
I
they
spent 6 months in a leaky boat. Dance to that, babes.
well, I think though those music cues are really important
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because they're
Immediately.
hyper sexualized, hyper about the money, like all
Mm,
those things overlaid on those scenes really kind of bring it home.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that link between sex and money.
That initial song is "Greatest Day" by Take That, which was an English boy band, if memory serves. Yeah, and that creeps up. Does it come up a
I
couple
believe
times?
that's Robbie Williams was in that. Who's also
Maybe. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
sort of lose track,
yeah.
but I lost
uh,
my Rolodex, so I can't remember.
I do want to, well, first of all, I'm going to take this shameless opportunity, Jim, to apologize to Shashank. He, of
Oh
course,
no.
shared with us a wonderful piece he did, a spec piece for a tourism piece for Dubai. It's super good. Like it
Yeah.
really kind of gave a sense of adventure. We're slipping in a little review here, folks. It gave a sense of adventure, a an invitation to adventure. Like a lot of tourism pieces are really they can be rather, well, yeah, I've seen pools everywhere,
Mhm.
resorts everywhere, you know, but great tourism pieces, you know, the Big Apple. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That
Yeah.
idea of trying to pitch something like Dubai as a place for adventure, little bit
Mhm.
of mystery and adventure, a mystique to it, without it being like, you know, Orientalism 2.0,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so great work, Shashank. Um, and yes, I will send you a video without all the branding. Uh, back to this though, and I love to see what people say in the chat about this. Uh, for me, I think there really is this on one level, there's a critique of the princess fairy tale,
Mhm.
whether it be Pretty Woman or anything that comes out of Disney, this idea of, that you're finding your Prince Charming
Well, look at
or your Princess Charming.
the movie poster on our screen right now. That's that captures it quite well.
Yeah. Yeah.
The in Vegas, the arms around her new love, her new husband,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And how, especially it happening in Vegas.
Mhm.
Apparently, what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, but it may need to return.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this has a lot about that these fairy tales, these lottery wins, this I will be taken away from this. I think it really does critique, and that's a big thing in American film. They love that love story that involves, you could say that's half of Lifetime or Hallmark.
Yeah.
This content where it's I will be plucked from obscurity, from terrible circumstances, rescued
Mhm.
and brought to this great thing. Crazy Rich Asians plays with that.
Mhm.
In that she goes there and it's a mother trying to keep her, but she wins her respect. Here, Baker's like, nope, gonna blow that up right now.
Yeah.
Boom. There's the sound effect I need.
It's so great
We need
to
an
join
explosion sound effect, Jim.
so great to join your beautiful family. Just like, "Oh, maybe not now. Read the room, honey."
Yeah. And even when she does finally, it's like, you know what, how does she put it here? Yeah, your son's a fucking
Yeah.
but that she just said he hates you so much. He did marry a whore. And it's like it's such a great moment, and that's when the dad laughs.
Yeah. Starts
Because
just
they're all
laughing
terrified of this
cathartically.
woman.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Annie. I'm talking
Mhm.
about the mother, the mater familia,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ones who allegedly protecting her spoiled brat of a child.
The other aspect of the story that you can talk about without bringing into the fact, you can't. I'm not saying, oh, she's made bad choices in life or whatever. It's not that, but it could be that she perhaps isn't the greatest judge of character because she seemed definitely surprised that the Vanya thing didn't work out. And that like there's like no question everything was going to be fine. And that seems to really have
Do
caught
ya?
her as a character off guard. I think so.
I
I think
no,
so.
I think about it like you think about that first act break, that when it turns
Mm.
in when he proposes to her, and she is saying, "Don't mess with me." And that is where she chooses, it's like, what the hell, I'll see where this goes. But not 10 minutes later, the phone's ringing and
Yeah.
she looks nervous.
Yeah, she's still
And
fighting for it, like that
oh,
whole presentation
because
to the
why
mom and
wouldn't
stuff
you?
like that.
Why
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
you? But I don't. I think right from the get go, she's like, "This isn't
she
really
think is a
gonna
little bit
happen."
cautious.
And then she kind of, "What the hell?" I'll play along with the fantasy. But I think that the phone call moment, halfway, a quarter of way through the second act, is right when she is like, "Oh, that's why won't you answer the phone? Why don't you just answer the phone? I don't want to speak to
Yeah,
my parents." Well, you told them, didn't you? She never really presses him there. And
no,
then, of course, who are these guys and what's going on here? And it's like, you know what? I have too much respect for Annie to think she didn't know what was going on there. It was mostly, I think, her own, what makes her not a nice girl, but a good girl, a good woman. Not a nice girl, but a good woman. Is she's like, screw that. I'm not rolling over for any of you. I'm going to fight for this.
Mhm.
Even though part of her brain is probably, yeah, this is not going to play out the
Well,
way we
and
want it to.
if you weigh it, she might have gotten, a couple of K out of it, $10,000 at the end, and
Plus the ring.
What's that? And the
Plus
ring,
the
yes,
ring, yeah.
oh, of course, yeah, good
Yeah.
call.
Who
But
knows? Maybe
which
she'll
was a
give
nice,
it back to Igor for when he
yeah,
proposes to her. Here,
which
what
was a
the
nice,
hell? We'll use that. We're
which
not
was a
going to
nice
use our
moment.
hard-earned money for a wedding
Yeah,
ring. We'll use
yeah, no,
Vanya's.
that was a good moment too,
Yeah.
at the very end. But yeah, I thought yeah, maybe she held a little bit back, or maybe she did suspect things would go. But getting into the situation in the first place, this man child who, you know, is constantly distracted by
Oh,
video games and is a bit glitchy. I mean, you know, maybe there is an aspect of, it can't get worse than I have now, or maybe this could lead to something else, and arguably it did lead to something else, but maybe not in the way she envisioned. But yeah, um, yeah, that's just another thing to think about anyway.
yeah. Jim, we've got a couple items in the chat. TMG, related news story. The adult video avian awards show that's supposed to be at Virgin Hotel is canceling. They canceled the show because the Adult Performers Guild
Oh
doesn't want to cross the picket line. I guess Virgin Hotels is a struck hotel. They don't
no,
want to cross the picket line. And yeah, I think that is absolutely DMG relevant to this show, because you do see, notwithstanding Diamond, poor Diamond, I actually kind of feel bad for her a little bit. She's still a jerk. She's, the other stripper heel.
yeah,
But there is a little bit of solidarity in there. These, as much as there can be, while at the same time they're always competing for action, you know.
yeah.
And so I loved that.
There's that scene where she's opening the doors because they're looking for Vanya, and they see there's a girl, and it's like, oh, sorry, oh, hi Kelly, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, how's it going? Okay, bye. And just
She's riding the guy. She's
yeah,
waves.
yeah.
Well, again, it emphasizes that these women are workers,
Mhm.
at a job, you
Yeah.
know. Well, I was about to say, not a job I do. No one's hiring me to do that
Yeah.
job.
Well, I'm in the same boat there, but there's this scene where they say, "Yeah, there's a fight," and one by one they abandon their lap
Yeah.
dances and go rush off to see the fight. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's the other thing too that I liked about it, is that there was no. It's some of the choices are very unmovie like. There's no definitive blows struck.
Yeah.
The
No.
story takes its way, but nobody gets knocked out. Like, some people
No.
get injured, but nobody gets knocked out. Toros doesn't get a comeuppance. Nobody really gets a comeuppance. There's a stripper fight, and it's that sort of awkward real life. Like, she ends up with a couple
Yeah.
scratches.
Yeah.
So there's no real kind of like
But even
final
Toros,
knockout or anything like that.
even Toros at the end, he's a, oh, thank you. Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
has a modicum, an iota of decency, not he's still a thug,
Yeah.
but it's also a thug that's got to go home with his smelly car.
Yeah.
I think his brother.
It's his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you hear this overlapping dialogue where, Toros and Gornik are arguing, and I just want to go back to Armenia, and your brother, you left him at the altar, blah, 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 while she's
You can go
complaining.
back to Yerevan.
I
Shout
love
out to
that.
Yerevan. Yeah.
Epitastic, Joshua. Also, yeah, loved the scene. Your son married someone like me to make you mad. Hates you
That was a
so
good
much.
line.
Yeah,
That's
it
sort of a
was.
definitive blow. If you're
It,
gonna have any, that's
yeah.
sort of like a nice punch in the face kind
Oh,
of a
yeah. It
line.
was a great, and it gives, it's the kind of line that where she kind of takes back her dignity because they're
Mm,
forever calling her, a whore, a hooker,
mm.
and she's, of course, she's like a prostitute, and she
Which
is
translates
every
well.
time she denies it,
Prostituti.
even though
Yeah.
it's like, well, oh, Annie, yeah. You literally meet the dictionary definition, but of course, she's fighting it because of the way they use the word. It's
Yes.
used
Yeah.
as a weapon, and then she finally gets that moment where she can turn it back on them, and it's just, mwah, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, DMG, hold the presses. Did Jim just say stripper fight? How have I
Yeah.
not seen
Did
this
I?
film yet? How have you
I might have.
not, DMG? What the hell? You gotta go see this film.
It was filmed in your town, or part of it.
Part
Part
of
of it
it,
was.
yeah. Yes, Jelly Duck, it's all about a divorce. The first half is about a wedding. The second half is about an annulment. And that's the other, you're gonna get it annulled because he's not just the son of an oligarch who has some thugs, but they're, socially conservative.
Mhm.
Like the
Well,
Armenian, he's at the Armenian church.
yeah.
I just love it. I love it all. Well, and I think there it's I saw the air quotes, Jim, and you're right, but I think that's part of the point of this film is that, that inversion, like how morally bankrupt these people who are judging Annie are,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
And
and and
let's
this
not
is where I
forget.
think Igor is, and Gornick, not so much Toros, but Igor and Gornick, they're kind of liminal figures who are like, I'm just trying to, I got to do a job here. But
Yeah.
they're a lot less, Toros, or not Toros, but Gornick doesn't call her names. Igor definitely doesn't. Because
Mhm.
I think there's still who am I to call a name here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point. Also, you go down to the garage, they turn on the lights, there's all those cars, and they say, "Oh, my parents don't let me drive them because they're dicks." You're like, yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Not that you'd
yeah.
be, playing a video game while driving at any point. But and I have to say the other thing too is that sort of worried me about this movie is that I don't really find Russians super hilarious at this point in history right now.
Yeah.
And the oligarchy comes from a place and it
Oh,
does certain things, and they're fully behind the Ukraine attack and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's I mean that
the
they didn't
subversion
sort of.
of, well, okay, I'm gonna put some sorry, to our American friends in the chat, but I'm gonna put some air quotes on American, democracy,
Mhm.
but that's a deeper conversation, but
Yes.
definitely these guys support a regime that's subverting that
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
aggressively,
So yeah,
um,
it's sort of
and
hard to see
prosecuting
them.
a horrific war in Ukraine.
Which is why I sort of wonder that the two of the guys were Armenian, because they're almost like one step removed, and you're not sort of I can't even watch the Americans anymore, because it just the anyway. But yeah, it's sort of an interesting take, and then you see all these kids just like throwing money around and living it up, and that's there's folks like that out in the world,
Oh,
and
and
yeah,
I'm
like
not,
Banya.
yeah, and I am not, at the same time, not thinking that, you know, the we saw some of the violence, certainly there can be more, but
Mhm.
that it isn't just always this, you know, John Wick-esque
Yes.
orgy of cruelty and violence, or, you know,
Balletic
the
violence.
yeah, Guy Ritchie, especially in the last few of his films, where it's just
Mm.
it's like taking a disturbing amount of pleasure in cruelty. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Epitastic Joshua says the very last shot of the movie to me. I think what Sean is saying here, Sean Baker, the
Mhm.
filmmaker, saying here is that she went through all of what she's been there. She's completely vulnerable, which leads to her breakdown at the end. I I'm gonna have to think on that one. That's a great point, Joshua. What what's your thinking there, Jim?
I think I'm glad you asked that question. I think it's because Igor's gesture and sort of just his way of associating with her. As I mentioned before, it's almost, I shouldn't say every relationship was transactional, because you've got, you know, her friend Lulu, and there's a
Yeah,
few others that they don't really touch upon, you know, that we haven't
but
talked about.
her with other men.
But I think this is almost the realest, even though it's been fairly brief, it's the realest kind of interaction she's had with anyone. The rest of it was kind of bullshit. And the gesture of her giving her the ring back, I think was a real act of kindness. I think that sort of, in a way, kind of blew her mind, and I don't think she was prepared for that. I think she's, you know, everyone in this, there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of anger.
Yeah.
It's not a very peaceful movie. It's not, you know, as violent as some, but almost everyone's telling each other to F off at some point in
Yeah.
the movie. And even Igor and Annie, Anora at the end. But I think this is kind of the realest interaction she's had in a while. And I think that to her, like, they're actually having sex, and she just breaks down.
Well,
Um,
I think that's like, because you look at any of the other times she's having sex, she's laughing, she's smiling. Times she's like, you know, if you slow down, let me do it. It'd be nicer.
yeah.
You know, she is. There are like, I think oh, this is a tough one. There are moments when she's having sex with Vanya where it's like, oh, is she actually enjoying it now? As opposed to it's just manic. I got off. you
Yeah.
know,
You
you
have
still have
45
another
minutes
hour.
left in this hour.
Yeah, that's a great moment. Um,
Yeah.
but I, I, I think though, yeah, I agree with you. Coming back to what Joshua said, I'm even why wouldn't she have a breakdown at the end? This has been
Yeah.
a ridiculous few weeks, although it does feel like one night, because
Yeah.
there are days I forgot, because it's so fast paced for a
Yeah.
2 hour and 20-minute film.
Mm.
It's so fast paced that it feels like everything's getting condensed, but it is still only a couple of weeks. She's
Yeah.
only known him a couple of weeks. She's had this moment of maybe I'll be a princess.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll be a princess. I'll be a Russian princess.
Your beautiful family, our home. You know,
Yeah.
there's several phrases that sort of
Yeah.
seem a bit,
E
for lack of a better term, cringy, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, because even she is like performing and
Mhm.
hoping. But so yeah, who wouldn't at a moment where, yeah, vulnerable, just at a moment after all of that, that is traumatic and horrible. And she has held it together because
Mhm.
not a nice girl, but a solid woman.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now it's time. She's safe and it all comes down. The
And I think
walls,
she's in
everything.
the company of a person that she feels that she can break down in
Yeah,
front. And that whole, it's a very slow building final
safe
scene.
with him.
And there's a couple stills that I now see that I've seen before, where her face is almost not slack, but there's no kind of like,
Nope.
Nothing in
Affect.
it. And you see her in the car windows behind her, and she's just
Yeah.
staring straight at him, and it's maybe slowly dawning on her or something, but she's sort of realizing something in that final scene. And I have to say that
Yeah.
the no music and just the car engine running
Yeah.
as the final sound.
Oh,
Nice,
yeah.
nice
Chef's
choice.
kiss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Epitastic Joshua adds, she went through hell, and also I see this as so many other men see her as an object, whereas Igor is the one person who sees her, as a woman,
Yeah.
as a vulnerable woman. DMG says, fingers crossed, there's no violence on Monday when the orange oligarch takes, speaking of oligarchs, when the orange one takes the oath of office. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Hoping to just had to bring that up.
well, that's on me. I think
Oh, okay.
I already, I
Oh, did you?
already
Okay.
went there. So,
I'm just
uh,
kidding. I'm just kidding, DMG.
but yeah, I'll speak on behalf of the channel and the show, saying we do feel for you folks,
Mhm.
because yeah, it's going to be tough for a lot of people, but we definitely feel for you. The next number of years. Jim, let's get into I think it's time for some final thoughts. What else did you want to say about Anora before we wrap it up?
I just had my little sheet here and see if I covered everything that we were talking about. I wrote down one line: Helen Keller ass bitch. So I think it was one of the crowds.
Alex.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
Alex, when they're talking
Uh,
about Billy at the
a
candy
little bit
store.
of a little bit of Vanya sliding across the floor like Tom Cruise in his socks there at the very when he was excited that she came over. But
Yeah.
one thing about Mikey Madison there is that it's funny because she played in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She played, I believe, Susan Adkins, and in Quentin's version of things, they get slaughtered, and so she's one of them at the end that get it's really violent. I mean, we're
think
talking
she's
about
set on fire.
yeah, and what's funny is not that. What's funny is that you can take somebody who played sort of a supporting role, and you see her, and then fast forward a few years, and it's Oscar talk, and she's in one of the sort of buzziest movies of the season,
Palme
and
d'Or
it's kind of
winner.
interesting. It's kind of interesting to watch the progression of that, and just sort of an appreciation there. But yeah, definitely a few things and people to look for. I have to admit, this is the first Sean Baker thing that I've seen. I've had Florida Project on my list for quite a while, but I feel
Ditto.
that it would be very sad and kind of in that way that I have to be prepared for. And so I've held off on it, but maybe I should take a leap there and get my act together in that way. But definitely, yeah, I'd be interested in watching more of this stuff, and I should have by now. But yeah, there's only so much time and so many movies. So
Yeah, no, I'm really glad I pushed myself to, okay, we gotta watch this thing.
yeah, a good
Get
choice. Yeah,
ourselves in Oscars mood. And now I totally see why, but I'm also so glad it wasn't just, it wasn't tragic. I think it's melodramatic. This woman has this adventure. She is hurt by it, but she is not destroyed by the experience.
yeah,
You see this woman at the end, hold it, defending her dignity. Maybe that's it. Defending her dignity, standing up for herself. And that's really good to see. And you also, you see these thugs and they're kind of comical, talking about who's incompetent and who isn't. And I'm like, oh, you're all kind of boobs, but
yeah,
okay. Like not to see stereotypical Russian thug. Because yeah, Jim, I'm, you know what, like thinking about the Munich one, the
Mm,
White Check, and I'm like, I don't know if you know what, what's going on in Gaza, I'm not sure I can watch that
yeah.
openly. You know, and you want to
Yeah.
be open to a film. And that's what I was worried about here. And I'm
That's
like,
a good point.
no,
Yeah.
you know what? Baker subverts so many tropes. He does such a good job that I'm like, oh no, I feel good. And yeah, a solid working class perspective on it.
Mm,
I'm not saying he's some Marxist or anything, but definitely somebody who's looking at it with realistic eyes.
mhm.
You know, and as that's wonderful, and not the first time he's looked at it from, you know, the people on the edge, but I think Tangerine, that's all about the night of a sex worker trying to, I think it was she's trying to get money or something, somebody owes her money or, yeah, I
Mhm.
can't remember. Another film I'm not in a big rush to see, but I also think I should see. What do you call them?
Yeah.
Eat your vegetables films?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love movies, but all this conflict, it's funny. It's just like, yeah, and then you sort of, I'm getting to the age where I think to myself, like, what's the last thing I want to see before I fall asleep? Do I want to watch, something that's, terrible, or something that's fun, or sports, or, whatever. And,
Yeah.
and that, I think that sort of comes into the equation, because you're aware of, certain things carry a bit of weight, certain movies out there. And, yeah, it can be pretty tough sometimes, but,
All right.
yeah.
On that note, folks, once more, we're going to ask you for a like, a subscribe, and maybe a ringy ding of the bell.
And one other thing too is that I should say David Ehrlich, EHRLICH. He releases every year. He does a best 25 movies montage. They're about 23. I think this year's is about 23, 24 minutes long. It's an exercise in editing and sensory overload and great music. He does the best work, and it's mind-blowing to watch these things. He released it today.
Yeah.
So
Send me
if
the
you look,
link and I'll
yeah,
put
sure.
it, I'll pin it in a comment.
Definitely. It's just great. I actually I was saying to Rob, I get a little bit emotional sometimes when I watch them. They're so well done. So
Yeah. Folks, first of all, Epic-tastic Joshua, Dragon
yeah,
Movie Guy, fellow film tubers, Shashank, our man in Chennai, also a film tuber, filmmaker in his own
filmmaker,
right.
yeah.
Great seeing you guys. Jelly Duck 100, great to see you too. It was so great seeing you. Epic-tastic Joshua, I think this is like the second time you've chimed in. So glad you made it. So glad you brought your views on this wonderful film. And last but certainly not least, DMG, one more chat from DMG.
Yeah.
Jim, you could watch a first place hockey team on TV, but I don't know if the Golden Knights are showing up in Winnipeg.
We're not too far behind there, my friend. So watch your back. We'll be coming down from the hills.
All righty, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. And
Happy
yeah.